Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Hello.
Yeah, hi. Am I audible?
Yeah, you are. Am I audible?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. All right. Have you received a link from the office about the LMS?
Yes, I have received a link. So I was just going through it. I saw there is one video. Are you talking about that one?
Right. Right. No. Yeah, there are videos. There's materials, and there are tests, mock tests.
I can see the video. I cannot
That's
see the
fine. We'll go through them one by
materials
one.
yet.
So I'll just walk you through that first, so that you are familiar with it, and then we'll move on from there.
Sure. Are there anybody else joining this session for today?
As of now, no. So we'll get started right away.
Sure.
So this is what you should be seeing on the LMS.
Okay, still um, I cannot see a screen yet.
I've started sharing.
No, I cannot see it. Yeah, now I can. Yes.
So introducing PRINCE2, understanding the PRINCE2 concepts, and there are two mock exams, and two foundation mock exam, and one a practitioner mock exam. So I believe you are familiar with how the PRINCE2 exam is organized. Now, first of all, before we go into that, see, there are two aspects of this. One is the understanding of Prince2 and its underlying concepts, and the other side is the exam side of it. Let's keep the exam side of it aside for now. As far as Prince2 concept goes, we will first walk through all things that relate to Prince2. What are the underlying concepts? What are the main features of Prince2? How is it a little bit different from other project management stuff? And when it comes to the exam, there are two exams. One is the foundation exam, the other is the practitioner exam. The foundation exam is a objective type question, which is testing your knowledge on the basic understanding of Prince2. It doesn't require a lot of in-depth knowledge, but a basic understanding of what Prince2 is and what it covers and all things about Prince2. So if you go into this Prince2 concepts,
So I'll just
you will find there's a section about the exam.
so I'm just in my LMS. I don't see it like this. You said it would be under course catalog, but no, it's just taking me to the YouTube video. But
Yeah, I'll come to the video, but let me just the second one, the concepts, Prince2 concepts. The other link that is there, the second link, not the first one.
Okay. No, what I was saying, I think I'm not able to view these links on my LMS. So, but you can
It
just let
should
me
open
know.
up on your browser. That's it.
Yeah, I'm not able to click on this. It's just showing me. Do you mind if I share my screen for a
Yeah,
minute?
sure.
It's saying that.
Yeah, go ahead. Now you would be able to share.
So this is what I'm seeing. So
Yes.
uh,
So if you click on the understanding Prince2 concepts,
here, okay.
yeah,
So if I go here and
click
no,
on
it
the
is
second
grayed
one.
out.
No,
I'm not
click on
able
the
to.
start or resume. So you have already started. So that's why it's start or resume the course. Yeah. So close this now. Say, click on that.
Complete it.
On the top, you have the right arrow introducing. Yeah. Click on the right arrow. Okay. Click on this complete and continue. Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
got it.
Scroll down. If you go to page number, there's a section about the exam, which is page number 14. Yeah.
This one.
So this is a brief about the exam. And this is what the format of the exam is on the next slide.
Okay. Choice question.
So 50% is the mark. The second one is also a multiple choice, but it's a bit different because what they do is they give you a particular scenario. So they give you a project based scenario based on which you need to answer the questions.
So the practitioner
Yes,
exam, right?
practitioner. Yes.
Examination.
Practitioner examination is also a multiple choice question, but what they do is they first give you a project scenario, and based on your understanding of the project scenario, you'd be answering the questions that are all specific to the project scenario. So this one is of 2.5 hours, and usually you get a mix of different types of questions. Different types meaning which one of this is correct, or which one of this is not correct, or which of the following is the best fit. So you might get like three, four options. Out of that, you might have to choose two or three options depending on how the question patterns are.
Okay. Okay.
So if you just stick to that previous slide, yeah,
This one?
uh, no, the next one. Yeah, so these are the different types of questions that you will get: classic multiple choice, multiple response, matching, sequencing, assertion, or reason. So matching could be like they give you options on the left hand side, they give you options on the right hand side, and then they say which of the following options is correct. So you again have multiple choice, but that multiple choice is based on the matching that will be provided. or it could be a sequencing. They will give you 6 or 7 options and they will say which comes first and which comes second and which comes last. Okay. Okay. Now let's forget the exam part of it for now. Now that you know what to expect in the exam, forget about the exam. Let's talk about the PRINCE2 concepts. So can I start sharing?
Yes, please. So if before we start, if we can just give the introduction about yourself.
Yes, I'll come to that. Just 1 minute. Um,
Okay.
so this is what we have talked about, and this is what typically project management is defined and how they are defined and stuff like that. In Prince2, it's a bit different, okay, in the sense that they talk about primarily 3 things. What are the 3 things? They talk about principles, they talk about themes, they talk about processes. And to make it convenient for you, you can remember it this way: 7 principles, 7 themes, 7 processes. 7 principles, 7 themes, 7 processes. And these are all general principles, general themes, general processes that have been defined supposedly for all organizations. To fit it to your requirement, you need to do the tailoring. All right. So, principles, themes, processes. And we will be talking about these principles, themes, processes in the course of our discussions. 7 principles, 7 themes, 7 processes. All right. And it requires tailoring to fit your project or your organization requirements. Because this, after all, is a general set of principles. It's like going to a shop and buying a shirt which is like size 44, and not everybody wears a size 44. So you need some amount of tailoring to fit it to your size. Everybody, right? So that is
Yes.
what we can say is tailoring. So what you're doing is the general principles, general themes, general processes are all defined. You pick that up and then you make it fit to your project needs. What are the things that apply? What are the things that are best fitted? And you modify those themes, processes, principles according to your need. Okay. That, in short, is what Prince2 all about.
Okay. Okay.
And if you were to think of it, along with this, there are 6 aspects of project, which we talk about. Aspects means 6 things that affect your project: time scale, scope, cost, benefit, quality, risk. Okay. These are the 7 principles. We'll talk about them in greater detail. These are the 7 themes, and these are the 7 processes. So if you look at any diagram, this is how the 3 things interact. you have the basic principles running across Prince2. On top of it, there are themes and there are processes inside which help you to execute projects. Okay.
Yeah.
Any questions at this point?
No, no question. So far, this is straightforward, but
Okay.
yeah, I'm sure I'll have questions later
Sure.
on.
Absolutely. Feel free to bring them up. All right. So we will pause this here a bit and we will go to the video. But before we go to the video, um, all right. So, in terms of a short introduction about myself, my name is Saurav, and I have been into project management for last almost 15 years now. And my background happens to be from the IT domain, um, ERP in particular, and implementation and management of projects and different projects from time to time. And I had the opportunity to work all over the world, so in different geographies, having implemented projects and participated in implementations. And this is one of my passion areas, so that is what I also do these programs from time to time, and help other individuals also to adapt to the project management principles and concepts. Okay, and that is what in short. And if you can do a short introduction about yourself.
Yes. So I have been, so my overall experience is 5.5 years, and I'm associated with your organization called VMware, and I'm one of the senior business analyst over here. So my domain is IT, and it's basically information security. And so I just wanted to know more about projects because as per my role, I handle a lot of projects for my team and for my organization. So to have more knowledge in depth, I thought that I take up Princeton. So it can give me insight from career wise. It can help me from career wise, and also it will help me for my office work. So yeah, so that's like very brief about myself and
Sure.
why I have taken this course. Um, I also want to know, are you, if you don't mind, you're working in which organization now?
I'm working as in I'm one of the people at Pallium.
Okay.
And all right, so moving on, this is a short video which explains to you about the interactions between the um, themes, principles, and what was the third one? We talked
Teams,
about three
principles,
things, right?
uh, yes, yes,
And processes.
concepts, right? Processes, sorry.
Okay, so themes, principles, and processes. So let's try and see what it is
PRINCE2 project management.
Are you able to hear?
First of all, I'd like to introduce myself. My name's Karen Swanston.
Could you hear her?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
And I'm a trainer for ILS, specialising in PRINCE2. So let's have a look at what we're going to be covering today. Now, PRINCE2 is a fantastic methodology for project management, but how you learn about it can make a big difference to understanding it well. So what we're going to do today is step you through how easy PRINCE2 can be to learn. We're going to look at some of the basics of the framework without overcomplicating it and provide you with some quick and easy to use hints and tips. So where do we begin? Well, let's start off with the definition of a PRINCE2 project. This definition here is taken straight out of the PRINCE2 manual. It says a project is a temporary organisation that is created for the purpose of delivering one or more business products according to an agreed business case. Now there's quite a few key messages on here. The first of which is saying how the project is temporary. So there is light at the end of the tunnel really. But it's important that we understand just what the project is here to do and recognise that once the project has delivered what it needed to, the project then closes down and business as usual picks up and uses what the project has produced. It says it's created for the purpose of delivering one or more business product. Now PRINCE2 calls everything a product. Generally speaking, there's two types of products. There are management products and specialist products. Management products are the things that will help you manage the project. Things such as your documentation, really, your plans, your reports. And specialist products are the things that are special to just your project. So what is not needed on every project. This is generally what you are introducing into business as usual. And the final statement on here says according to an agreed business case. Now the business case is to show the justification for doing the project. So they need to see that there is a justification for the business to invest the time and the effort into this project for the benefits that they're going to get back out of it. Now, as much as we can look at some words and talk about the words, I think it's much easier sometimes to understand if we have a look at a diagram. Now here we've got two environments. We've got the project area and we have business as usual. So the project is here to produce a product. And as we've just talked through, this is a specialist product that we're going to give to business as usual. But at the end of the day, it is all just stuff. So the project is here to produce some stuff, which we're going to then hand over into business as usual for the users to use. So the specialist products are really an output from the project. And it's only when users start to use this new product, this new stuff, that things will start to change in business as usual. Now the change is what's referred to as the outcome. So the outcome in business as usual is what we are hoping to achieve. Now with any sort of change, there is always two sides to change. There's a positive side, but we also should consider the negative side to a change as well. So PRINCE2 calls a positive change a benefit, which is a measurable improvement for one or more stakeholder. Or a disbenefit is a negative change for one or more stakeholder. So with all projects, we must consider not only the benefits for the business, but what is the negative knock-on effect by the project existing as well. Now, when we are learning PRINCE2, one of the things that is sometimes quite difficult to learn is the terminology. So wherever there is some way of making that easier, then we need to share that. Now here we've got terminology around outputs and outcomes. Now an output is any of the specialist products, and the output includes the letter P for product. The outcome is all about the change, and outcome includes the letter C for change. Something as simple as this can actually make understanding and learning the terminology so much easier. Now, PRINCE2 is made up of 4 integrated elements of principles, themes, processes, and tailoring to the environment. Now, the principles are the guiding obligations and good practice, which determine whether a project is genuinely being managed using PRINCE2. Now, there are 7 principles, and unless all of them are applied, it's not classed as a PRINCE2 project. So the principles are like the underlying rules that every project needs. But once we've learned the principles, it's something that you would do and you would use as second nature. So as an example, if you was preparing a meal, making a sandwich, before you touched any of the food, one of the things that you would always do is wash your hands. And that is something that you learnt at some point in your life, but now it is something that you just do automatically. So the principles are a very similar type of thing. Once you've learnt them, it's something that you would do automatically. And it would feel strange for the principles to not be in place. Coming down to the themes, these are addressed continually throughout the project. Now, if we was preparing a meal, the ingredients that we needed for that meal would be needed all the way through producing the meal. So if we was making a cottage pie, one of the ingredients that we would need is potatoes. But they might look very different from the bag of potatoes we buy from the supermarket to the end product of the potatoes going into the oven on top of the meat. So the potatoes will go through various different stages throughout the project of making a cottage pie. So the themes in PRINCE2 are the same type of thing as the ingredients. We are needing these all the way through the project, but they can look very different from the beginning to the end. Coming down to the processes, a stepwise progression through a project. So it steps you through from the beginning of the project right through to the project closing. Now, if you wanted to make a cottage pie and you'd never done that before, you could refer to a recipe to help you step through what needs to be done. And the processes are just like following a recipe. Now, a recipe tells you what to do with the ingredients at that point in time. And the processes do exactly the same. The processes step you through the project and they're telling you what needs to be done with the themes at that point in time. Not forgetting the principles, washing your hands, all the way through our project. And the final step is tailoring. Now, tailoring is looking at the environment, the size, the complexity of your project and making sure that it's appropriate for the project that you are working on. So going back to our cottage pie example, is it a cottage pie for one? Is it a family cottage pie? Do we have carrots in the middle of it? Do we have carrots at the side? There are different ways that we might actually put a cottage pie together. So that's thinking about the environment, the people that's involved and making sure that what we are producing is appropriate. Exactly the same for a PRINCE2 project. Thinking about the environment and making sure the formality and things are appropriate for that environment. Now, the principles are mentioned there. We have 7 principles, which are listed down here. Continued business justification, we touched on briefly on one of the earlier slides about the justification for doing the project. So the business case is showing the justification, and this needs to not only be at the beginning of the project, but the business case is updated at key points throughout the project to make sure we continue to have that justification to carry on. Learn from experience is all about what it says really, is making sure we don't make the same mistake twice. Let's learn from things that have happened before. Defined roles and responsibilities. The different people involved in the project we need to make sure that they understand what their responsibilities are and also how they fit into the bigger structure of the project. and that people understand what their roles are, what their responsibilities are, and then they're not stepping on the toes of anybody else in the project. Manage by stages is about breaking the project down into more manageable chunks. If we're looking at the project as a whole, sometimes it can feel a little bit overwhelming, or you may not be able to plan to the right level of detail for the whole of the project. So by breaking it down into more manageable stages and working on one stage at a time, as we're coming towards the end of one stage, we are nearer that point in time then to plan the next stage. Manage by exception is relating to tolerances. Tolerances is the permissible deviation around a plan's target for time and cost. Now, that's the basics for tolerances. So it's the amount of wiggle room that we have. Now, manage by exception is by agreeing between the project board and the project manager what needs to be done, agreeing the tolerances, so the leeway that's also possible, means that the project board don't need to be checking on the project manager every 2 minutes. It gives the project manager a little bit of space to actually manage the project it's a much more efficient way of working. Manage by exception, though, relies on reporting. Regular reports going to the project board to reassure them that everything's okay. And in the situation where it's not okay and we're forecasting to go outside of a tolerance, then we would need an exception report to be sent to the board immediately. Focus on products. It's about understanding that we know what the end product is, or we've got a good idea of what the end product is. So then we can start to make sure we are planning to achieve.
Hi, I just wanted to say one thing.
To suit the project environment.
Go ahead.
Hey, I was thinking, can we skip the video? Maybe I can watch it later on, and you can take
Yeah, we can do
that.
that. This just basically gives you an overview of what it is. So we'll just
Yeah.
do it a couple of more minutes and then we'll move on.
Yeah, I can watch it because it's a 40-minute video. I mean, I can watch it on my own.
It's not, the entire thing is not here. Okay? Just
Okay.
be patient.
It ties back to one of the 4 integrated elements that we've already spoke about, making sure that the formality and the structure that we put in place is appropriate for the environment that we are working within. So all of the principles must be applied. Now the themes, we have 7 themes, and to understand the themes, we really want to see how these are used across the processes. So the processes in PRINCE2, here we've got the diagram illustrating all the different 7 processes. Up at the top of the diagram, it mentions corporate or program management, being the people who instigate the project. The mandate is what we receive that kick-starts the project, that starts us to think about the project itself. Could be in lots of different formats, the mandate. But when we receive the mandate, it triggers the first of our processes, starting up a project. Now, in starting up a project, we are wanting to ensure we have an understanding of what the project is about. But first of all, we need to make sure we have an executive and a project manager appointed. Capture previous lessons comes back to the principle of learn from experience, to make sure that we're learning before we get into the project itself. Preparing the outline business case is a rough draft of what the justification is for doing this project, just what the project is about. But we also need to consider who else do we need on the project as part of the project management team to make sure that all the different stakeholders actually have a voice on the project. The project approach is describing how are we going about the project. Is this something that we can do ourselves? Do we need to go to an external third party? Can we simply upgrade something we've got, or do we need to have something brand new or even something bespoke created? And assembling the project brief is bringing all the information together that we know about the project at this point in time, so we can present it to the project board to allow us to move forward. The final step here is to plan the initiation stage, and that is what we are wanting to go in to do. So during the starting of a project, we actually use a number of different themes. One of the themes that we use is the organisation theme, which is all about the different people that's needed on the project. Now, on this diagram here, it's illustrating how we have corporate or programme management at the top. Now, these is the management level that's just above the project itself. These are the people that instigate the project. Within the project management team, we have the project board, who are directing the project, the project manager, who is managing the project on behalf of the project board, and the team manager, who is looking after the delivering of the specialist products. Now, you may have noticed how the project management team can be abbreviated into PMT. Now, PMT has 3 letters, and the project management team has 3 levels of management. Something else, again, that can make it a little easier to remember. So the project management team is made up of the project board, project manager, and team manager. One of the other themes that is covered in starting up a project is the business case theme. Now, the business case is something that evolves throughout the project. In starting up a project, we create an outline business case. But then as we move forward into the initiation stage, we would then be updating this into a full detailed business case. And as we are progressing then in the project, at the end of every stage, we would then update the business case to make sure we've still got the justification to continue into the next stage. Once the project board receives the project brief and the initiation stage plan from starting up a project, we would be asking the project board for them to authorise us to then move across into initiating a project. Now, initiating a project is where we really do the planning of the project. At the top of this diagram, it's talking about strategies.
Okay, so at this point of time, we are just starting off with the project, right?
Okay, I cannot hear you properly. I mean, your voice is very feeble.
Is it better now?
It's a little better, but yeah, it's still very feeble. I can't hear you.
Yeah. All right. So just okay. So we understood what the 7 principles, 7 processes, 7 themes are. Any questions on that?
No question for now.
Okay. So there are different diagrams which try to illustrate the relationship between the 3 important aspects, the themes, processes, and principles, and how they gel, how they interact with each other. Now, when it comes to the process, these are the steps through which the project is implemented. So as we saw, starting up the project is the first of the steps, and then we have the initiating the project. Now, at this point, there is a subtle difference that one needs to understand, that initially there might be a project brief that is handed over by the corporate program management to the corporate, to the sponsor, to the project manager, saying that here, this is what we think is a project. Do you think this will make a viable case? So it's the project manager who will go back and do all things within the starting of the project, as you saw in that video. He will come up with a business case, either justifying doing the project or not justifying the project. So if the project is not justified, at that point of time, you shut it. but you document it saying that the project has been evaluated and it has been found that it is not viable due to these following reasons, and then you shutter it, you close it. Maybe 6 months later, 1 year later, you come back to that project and you revisit it and check whether it's still viable or not. Okay. In case it is found that yes, it makes sense to start the project, at that point of time, you would have initiating the project, which is this IP, initiating the project. And there would be a formal document called project initiation document. Okay. And this entire project is broken down into stages. So this SB is a stage boundary. So from each stage, you would have specific deliverables, specific outputs that you are expecting from that particular stage. And the deliverables or the product delivery is done by the teams. So you would have the product delivery being managed by individual teams, and they give you outputs from that particular stage. Towards the end of the stage, you check whether the stage objectives have been met and there is a continued business case to continue with the project. If not, Prince2 suggests that at any point of time, if you find that the project is no longer having a viable business case, shut it. Don't waste time, money, effort into that. All right. So SB is the stage boundary. So you could, depending on the size of your project, you could have multiple stages, and each stage would have teams working on the product deliverables, delivering the project. The deliverables would be accepted. Once it's accepted, you close the stage, move on to the next stage. And in this way, you cumulatively, you complete your project. And once your project is completed, all your deliverables are completed, you close the project. Okay, which is the CP. Any questions?
No question for now.
Now, when we talk about tailoring, we have spoken about tailoring it, tailoring the Prince2 to our project needs. There are two terms which are similar. One is called tailoring, one is called embedding. Tailoring is basically for a specific project, whereas embedding is for the entire organization. So if tomorrow your organization decides that I want to adopt Prince2 as my standard project management methodology, then they would need to first embed it within their organization. When we talk about embedding, we are talking about identifying the responsibilities, clearly defining who will be doing what, the, defining the rules, the guidance, the standards. Then you need to undertake training and development for all your people across the organization. Then you need to integrate them with the different business processes so that they also fall in line with the Prince2 expectations and requirements. Then you have different tools that you need to develop or adapt to the Prince2 uh, concepts and the process assurance. Okay, all this in line with the Prince2 method. And you would have a lot of training videos or training materials and guiding, small notebooks or websites, internal websites, detailing how Prince2 works and how it is to be adapted within the organization. Now, that is a organization-wide initiative. That's why we are calling it embedding. If we are doing it only for one particular project, then you would call it tailoring. So you are fitting, maybe your client has told you that this particular project has to use Prince2. Rest of the projects are not specific to a customer, so uh, they may be using other project management methodologies. That's absolutely fine. But this particular one is expected to use Prince2. In that case, you'd be tailoring it. So what is tailoring in this case? This means that you would be using the principles, themes, processes, and the terms, terminologies which are specific to Prince2, you'd be using it in your project. Like we said, product, every deliverable in Prince2 is called a product. So you'd be having the product descriptions for the project, and you'd revise the role descriptions as per the Prince2 project roles, and you'd adjust the processes to match the Prince2 expectations. Okay. Often companies or a project may come out with a small handbook or a small guide with detailing the uh, individual concepts within the Prince2 and how they are being adapted to the specific project. So let's start with the principles first. What are the principles? Like we saw, the principles, 7 principles. One is continued business justification. Another one is roles and responsibilities, managing by exception, learn from experience, manage by stages, focus on products, and you need to tailor it to suit the project environment. As you can see from the names, you can make out what each of those principles are, right? You know, business justification, you get an idea reading it that okay, this is about a business case. Learning from experience, based on your past experience, what have you learned, what have been the lessons learned, doing some projects elsewhere for other clients or for other customers, or based on previous implementations. Defining the roles and responsibilities, managing by stages, manage by exceptions, focus on products. For each of them, from the name itself, you can figure out what it talks about, right? Let's try and understand them a little more in details. So what is a Prince to what continued business justification all about? It means that there should be a justifiable reason to start a project. Justification should remain valid throughout the life of the project. Although the justification should remain valid, it may change or evolve. The justification should be approved and documented in a business case. If for any reason the project can no longer be justified, it should be stopped. No matter at which stage of the project you are in, if the project business case no longer exists, stop it. Next, learning from experience. We all learn lessons in life. Every day we learn new lessons probably. Same goes with our projects. When we implement project, every project we think that yes, I have learned it all, and then you go into the next project and then you realize you still haven't learned everything. There are still more things to be learned. So these are lessons that we keep learning based on our experiences. So the teams learn from historical data based on previous similar projects in the same organization or in a different organization or in the same industry. They learn when the project starts and as it progresses and when it closes. So right from start to end, you keep learning throughout your project. It is the responsibility of everyone involved in the project to proactively seek lessons learned. Lot of companies towards the end of the project, they ask employees, the project team members, to come up with the lessons learned from the project. So it could be a bullet point of what lessons you have learned and what things you have experienced, and you document that, and those are put together in a project closure document. Okay. Um, An example, a Japanese bank is to provide partial funding for an infrastructure project in a developing country. However, they want an assurance from the local government as a similar project in the past had faced local labor problems. Lot of projects you see in all over the country, they get stalled due to land acquisition problems or land related issues, and project funding organizations are very strict on those. They say unless those things are catered to, will not be funding it. So they ensure that based on their learning, they are able to ensure better compliance in future projects. Every project must have the roles and responsibilities clearly defined. Okay. Essentially, there are three important parts or three important entities: the business, the user, and the supplier. As a business analyst, you are probably part of the business. You are often interacting with the users and in some cases with the supplier as well. You are the interface between the user and the supplier. The supplier could be an internal supplier, could be an external supplier. The intersection between the three is basically your project, where you are interacting with the business, the supplier, and the user. And each of them have their roles and responsibilities clearly defined. This is what we have talked about earlier. The PRINCE2 project can be broken into stages. So you could have multiple stages, which are also called as management stages. And the project itself, you could have broken into management stages, technical stages. Technical stages could have your individual deliverables for each stage of the project. Okay. Sometimes large projects, you could have a phase one, phase two, phase three, which is again a stage basically, right? And phase one also could be broken down into smaller stages. And project should have minimum two management stages. So one is the initiation stage and one or more further management stages. So you will always have at least two stages. It'll be more, but at least two management stages. Usually the stages are short, so you can focus on individual pieces. It is easier to manage and deliver in smaller stages. Stages are planned, delegated, monitored, and controlled according to the business priority, risk, and complexity involved. There is no specific size or scale of a stage. It depends on the business, the size of the business, the complexity involved, and what it is required to deliver the entire project. Next, we come to the manage by exception. What manage by exception means is, we saw the corporate program management, we saw the program management team, right? So we said there are 3 4 levels of it. The CPM is the top level. Within the project you have 3 levels: directing, which is the project board; managing, which is the project manager; delivering, which is the team manager. So when these timelines, budget, scope is given, they have certain boundary defined for each of them. For example, you have 100 million project. CPM knows that I am committing 100 million. They would probably take 10% off and say $90 million is the budget for the project board. If you cross $90 million, then you come to us for additional funds. If you are within 90%, you don't need to come to us for any approval or for any directions or whatever. There could be exceptions defined for different aspects.
So
So
I have
moment
one
the
question. So,
tolerance, yes, moment the
so,
tolerance is violated, that is when they would go to the next higher level. Yes.
so for the direction, they will come to the project board, right? And if there is if there are any violations, then they go to the CPM, program
Yeah,
management
next
authority.
higher level. Actually, you can say, you can start this from the lowest level. Team manager will also have the levels defined, tolerances defined. So let's say a deliverable is there for, or let's say that $100 million. So that $100 million is for the CPM. Project board gets 90 million. Project manager gets, let's say, 75 million, or say 85 million. And the team manager, he could get, because he's managing stages, he could be getting, like if there are 4 5 stages, he could be getting 15 or 20 million dollar. So if he is able to do it within that 20 million dollar, he doesn't need to seek the project manager's approval. But in case he is going to breach that, he needs to get the project manager's approval. If the project manager is going to breach the $85 million target, then he's going to seek the project board's approval with proper justifications and all the necessary documentation in place. And if project board thinks that they can manage it within 90 million, they are fine. They don't need to go to CPM. All right. So that is what managing by exception means. So if tolerances are forecast to be exceeded, they are immediately referred to the next management layer for a decision. The golden rule is right decisions to be made by the right level of people at the right time. Next, we come to focus on products. So our entire Prince2 uh, project methodology seeks to focus on products. Products meaning the deliverables. What are the outputs that you're getting from your project? So the product description will include the product's purpose, composition, derivation, format, quality criteria, and quality method. The product description is used to estimate the efforts, determine what are the resource requirements, any dependencies and interlinkages, and determine the schedule of activities. A successful project is output oriented and not activity oriented. An output oriented project is one that agrees and defines the project's products prior to undertaking the activities required to produce them. Okay, so focus on products. So delivery of the product in terms of the quality requirements is very, very important. Finally, we come to tailoring to suit the project environment in terms of based on the size, complexity, importance, capability, risk. So the project initiation document that you are going to create will describe the method to tailor the project. So why do we need to tailor it? We need to tailor the project management method to fit in with the project environment, including your other businesses like your HR, finance, procurement, which may be feeding into your project with their support services. So we set the project controls based on scale, complexity, importance, capability, risks involved in the project. All right. Now, next, this is a short summary. So continuous business justification is always required for the project. We learn from previous experience. Project has defined, agreed upon roles and responsibilities within an organization structure that engages the business, user, and supplier stakeholder interest. A project is planned, monitored, and controlled on a stage-by-stage basis. Project has defined tolerances for each project objective to establish limits of delegated authority. Project focuses on the definition and delivery of products, in particular, their quality requirements. PRINCE2 is tailored to suit the project's environment, size, complexity, importance, capability, and risk. Next, we come to the themes. Now, we'll take a short break in between. Let me know when you would like to take the break.
Yeah, sure. I mean, if you want, I mean, I'm fine. So if
Okay,
you want to break now, that's okay.
all right. So next we come to the themes. So we talked about the themes. So themes are the aspects of project management that you must be continually addressing. So each theme will have a purpose, and the purpose is achieved by following the principles. Any project manager who gives thorough attention to these themes will fulfill the role professionally. And what are the themes? These are the themes. Business case means why. So the if you answer the question why you're doing the project, you have your business case. Organization, who is doing the project? Answer to that will have the roles and responsibilities. Quality, what is the level of quality expected? As you know, quality may vary based on different attributes. So what are the quality expectations of your project? Based on that, you will get your answer. Plans, how much, and when. These are the questions that you must ask. The plan theme describes how to create, modify the products of the project, how much time and money is required for the project, and when to perform the activities. Risk, what if? What if something goes wrong? What if something affects the project? what if something affects the organization? So that's the plan for managing the uncertainties. Change. What's the impact? The steps for assessing impact of change and managing the change. Progress. Where are we now? Where are we going? Should we carry on? Addresses the ongoing viability of the plans. Okay, so these are the 7 themes: business case, organization, quality, plans, risk, change, progress. Business case, organization, quality, plan, risk, change, progress. So when you are applying these themes, keep these points in mind. All 7 themes must be applied in a project, as you can make out all of them apply to the project. They should be tailored according to the scale, uncertainty, and complexity of the project concerned. Themes can be tailored up or down, and for complex projects, one can go for detailed documentation and tighter process control. For a simple low-risk project, concise bullet point presentations and informal processes may be enough to capture all the information and conduct the project. So themes in PRINCE2 describes facets of project management that must be addressed continually. The 7 themes are, we just talked about them: business case, organization, quality, plans, risk, change, progress. And all 7 themes must be applied in a project. So let's talk a little more about the business case theme. The business case describes the justification of the project and why the investment in the project is worthwhile. The business case can be based on financial benefits as well as some other reasons. Why are you having that project? It might be a mandatory project based on government mandate, rules, or change in regulations. For example, when the GST came in, the GST project was a mandatory thing for all companies. They had to do changes to their billing, to how they are invoicing, to how they are collecting their taxes in order to accommodate the GST requirements. So that's a mandatory project. You could also have a not-for-profit project. NGO projects such as improving the literacy rate of a particular state by 25% or to produce or to reduce poverty. A lot of organizations nowadays do social projects, right? So those could be projects that you are undertaking. Evolving projects. These are research-based projects based on an idea, and you start developing that idea, and based on that and based on the requirements, you interact with the customers and you take it forward. Gradually over a period of time, you move ahead based on how the things evolve. Customer or supplier project. This is probably most common in a project organization where our project requirements are driven by the customer or the supplier requirements. And they may have their own business case, which by default we adapt as the business case of the project. Multi-organization project. It could be joint ventures, research, or the government projects that have to be undertaken. So because of this, you could have a business case for each of them.
I have a question
Yeah,
for the previous slide. So in all the organization, there can be some of the events, like for example, let's give the example of Toastmasters, right? Where people develop their communication skills, and sometimes there can be project based out of it. Like, for example, in my organization, I'm part of one of the project that involves like public speaking, and we basically invite external speakers to speak in our on platforms. Although it's a tech project, but I don't. So there is. I mean, I just wanted to understand, like, where do you think it will be fitting? Because there are no, although there are no suppliers or clients involved, it's an internal VMware project where, for example, we ask our any external speaker to come and talk and encourage women in tech to, be more proactive. And so, where do you think this kind of project will fit in these business case themes?
Okay. So when we talk about a project, what you're talking about, there are two aspects of it. One is when we
Okay.
talk about a project and we talk about business as usual. Project means there is a specific time frame,
Okay.
there is a specific team, and there are specific deliverables.
So this has a specific time frame. It's not a business usual. This has a specific time frame. It has a specific team, like it is for 6 months, and we have certain deliverables from our end. So
Okay.
can this not be? I have two questions. So can this not be considered as a project? Because we in our internal team we call it as a project. And secondly, if it is, then what do you think in between these five themes? What do you think it can be under this? So, do
So
you think it
first
can
of
be for
all,
non?
okay, yeah.
Yeah.
First of all, this is in this theme we are talking about a business case. So for this initiative that you are talking about, this
Yeah.
initiative would have a business case for it.
Yes.
What is the business case? You want an open discussion forum, or open up thoughts, or open up it's a probably a medium of interaction between the employees and an external achiever or external guest speaker who comes in and he talks about a particular theme,
Yes.
right? So to that extent, I would say it would probably be an evolving project. Okay. Now these 5 6 themes that you see here, these are not cast in stone, or this is not a complete list. There might be other things also. You could call it a, like you are talking about, an employee development initiative. May not be,
Yes.
you may not say a
Yes.
development, you might say employment interaction initiative.
Yes.
That could be
Yes.
a type
Yeah.
of project as well, where you have a specific timeline, a specific goals, objectives. So other things relating to the project would then start applying here as well. So you would have a budget in mind, you would have a team
Yeah.
in place, organization with roles, responsibilities defined. Then you would have, from time to time, you would be taking the, with the business case, why you are doing this, what is the justification in doing this, and you take a feedback after each session or after a couple of sessions and see whether it is creating a positive impact or not. If not, if there's no business case in continuing this, you would probably shut this. In all
Yes. Absolutely.
organizations, time to time they take a lot of initiatives. HR comes up with great ideas, businesses come up with great ideas, teams come up, individuals, companies also invite individuals to make suggestions. They would have a suggestion box probably somewhere in the canteen or in the on the each of the floors, and say, you have an idea, just drop it into that box, and they would be evaluated. And if found positive, or somebody thinks, yes, why not, try it out, so they would start taking that. So it could be kind of an initiative project or a evolving project, trying to see how, and how it is benefiting the organization and the employees. Okay.
Yeah, so I was just thinking from this perspective, like if I have to fit in those projects, like
Yes.
where would it fit? But then, yeah, as you said, there can be other themes as well. Like this
Yes.
is not
Yes.
the
Yes.
complete
Right.
list.
So depending on this, if I were to just think about these 5 items only, then I would probably put it somewhere around an evolving project. So as you
Yeah.
take the initiatives, as you have the interactions, there might you might have some ideas getting thrown out of every session. You might take certain inputs and jot down important things that come up. You might have heard great stories about organizations across the world who have uh, you know stumbled upon great ideas through these interactions. Nobody probably thought of that it would be a great idea, but somebody thought of it, somebody gave that idea, and they started working on it, and then they found, oh, it's a great idea.
Yeah. Now that you put it together, yes, evolving project makes more sense. If I have to put these kind of projects in any of these categories, then evolving
Exactly,
project category
exactly.
would
So
make
we
more
have to
sense.
go in with an open mind and see how it's evolving. We collect the feedback and see if we can further develop upon it and things like that. Now there is there are two terms that are usually used: program and project. Program is basically a collection of aligned projects. Okay, so there could be individual projects which roll up into a program. For example, let's say you have a road widening project. The current road has to be widened. Now in order to do that, you would need to break it up into smaller pieces. How? One aspect is definitely the road, but there could be encroachments on the road. There could be people with shops, with houses, or with offices encroaching on the road. So you need to rehabilitate them first. Then you would have some cables or electric wires going running underground. You'd need to shift those. In between there could be some a small rivulet or a canal going through it. You'd need to have a small culvert built in, just you're widening the road. Otherwise, one place it will become narrow, again it will become wide. So individually you are having 3 4 projects which may be going in parallel, or they're dependent on each other. Unless the people move, you cannot dig them up, you cannot relay the cables. Unless these two are done, your project, your maybe the culverts can't be done. And once until these 3 things are completed, your road widening project can't be completed. Right? So a program is basically a collection of related projects. So when you are thinking of a business case, you have to think with, not only of the project business case, but also of the program business case. Okay, so the project budget is derived from the program budget probably. The benefits of the project are going to roll up into the benefits of the program. Okay, and all these together will be defined, tracked, monitored at not only the program level, but also at the project level, because they are all interlinked. Is it making sense?
Yes, yes, it's good.
Okay. So this diagram, we briefly saw it in that video as well. It talks about reviewing the business case throughout your project. It's not just that we'll verify the business case in the beginning and close it and forget all about it, and then we do our project in our own sweet will. No, this business case has to be verified at every phase of your project. every stage of your project and confirm that yes, my project business case is still valid. Okay. So this is very, very important and a very important aspect of Prince2, the continued business justification. Even towards the end of the project, half of your project is done, three-fourths of your project is done, doesn't matter. Prince2 says you confirm whether there is continued business justification or not. Otherwise, just shutter it.
So I just have a question. Uh, so you said that there has to be, as per this concept, there has to be a continued business justification throughout the project. Like, um, let's say I'll just give you one example. So just help me understand this. So for example, like if again, I'm giving example of my
Sure.
organization. Like if we are trying to integrate a new tool, uh, so, so it's we build a project around it. We build a project plan, and we'll give business justification at the beginning, like why we need the tool, why we are integrating, what are the scope and benefits that we are getting out of it. So as per the Prince2 concept, like even once, like as you said, like even if I'm in the fourth stage of the project, still it will require the business case, right? So it will not be based on like the initial. So the initial business case remains the same. Like we need a new tool, which would be more user friendly, where the user interface would be better. But do you think it still needs to be continued during the project, even if we are halfway through the integration?
Yes, yes. So what they're saying is this business justification where you said it has to be user friendly, the interface has to be great. Now
Yeah.
what happens often is as you start with your project, initially you do all your planning, you do a demo version of the project of the tool,
Yes.
the trial version of the tool, you demonstrate it to the users come up with feedback. Okay, they say, hey, I want this, I want that, I want this, I want, they will come up with probably another 50, 60 more new requirements. Now when you are trying to accommodate those requirements, you find that those are in violation of your business principles or of your business case. Your business original case was, let's say there was a one liner, user friendly tool. By incorporating those changes, you are finding that it becomes more cumbersome. Now, in those cases, you can take a call whether you want to incorporate those changes, because that will then change the business benefit case of your project. Originally,
Oh,
you had set out making it simple, but by incorporating the changes, you find it becomes more complex,
yes. Okay. Yeah. Now,
right?
now it makes sense.
Yeah.
Yes. Like for
So if
example,
you,
if you're
if I may give you an example, you see typically what happens in all these government initiatives. They initially start off with saying that we'll make things life simple. Our
yes,
income tax is a classic example,
yes,
right?
yes,
They
yes,
start with that, and then down the line they start thinking, oh my god, people are going to evade taxes, they are going to do this, they are going to do that, so they come up with all the ifs and nots, and they think of the negatives more than the positives, and in the bargain what
yes,
happens, the positive side of the project is lost.
yes, yes,
So that is what they're saying, that don't lose sight of the business case that you have in mind, what you set out to do, and confirm that it still exists. The business justification is still there.
yes.
Okay.
No, yeah, now it makes sense. Like if a user comes back for the tool, let's in the example, if the user feedback says that, hey, the tool is not at all user friendly, it is more
Yes.
complex, then it actually doesn't fit to the business
Correct.
justification or the business
Correct.
case
Correct.
that we initiated.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Another
Okay.
thing, let me, few years back when GST was implemented, lot of
Yes.
companies were in the process of implementing financial systems which were to streamline their invoicing, their billing, their taxes and all that stuff. Then government announced that we are going for GST from 1st of July. Let's say some project was ready to go live in March or in January, March, and then they heard, oh my God, GST is coming and it's going to be used. So what do they have? They have a choice there. Either they stop the project then and there because the original business justification is no longer going to be there. They have to incorporate a GST into the solution. So the business case needs to be modified so that they are able to accommodate the GST requirements. Otherwise, your project is going to be not accepted. You will just scan it and keep it aside and create another project with for GST.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's why you need to keep evaluating the business case, and along with that business case there is a business review plan that happens. It is in the beginning of the project. Typically companies come up with a list of benefits that they see out of that project, why they want that particular project, what are the benefits, okay, of doing that project, because at the end of the day companies want to justify the expenditure. You can compare the results to the current scenario, which leads to the next point, which is to collect baseline measures. That means what is baseline measures? Originally, where were you and what benefits you are getting now? Benefits review plan will include information on the expected timeline for these benefits. That is when the benefits can be expected and measured and who will gather the information. So benefit review plan is an important aspect of your project. The business case that you're going to create should typically have these points. An executive summary. What are the reasons for your project? What are the business options? What are the expected benefits, expected disbenefits, timescales, costs, investment appraisal, and the major risks involved? It could be a one pager or at most a two pager giving a brief about the business case for your project. I don't think most of the projects do it, but this would be a great starting point if someone were to document it.
Yes,
Then
through all these pointers, right? As per all these pointers, like executive summary and reasons.
exactly have these pointers in your business case, 6 7 points. Maybe it will spill over from one page to two pages, that's fine, but it gives you a summary of the expected business case and brings more clarity into your project.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, I was just wondering, can we take a break in some time?
Yeah, let's just finish this thing and then we can take a break.
Sure, sure, okay.
So the output of a project is a specialized products. Outcome is the result of the change derived from using the project outputs. And benefit is the measurable improvement resulting from an outcome seen as an advantage by at least one of the stakeholders. So an example of a project that involves the implementing an ERP to improve operational efficiency, the output is ERP itself. Outcome is the improvement in operational efficiency. What is outcome? The change.
Yeah.
Output
Mhm.
is your product that you're getting. Here you're getting the product of ERP. Change is the operational efficiency. And what is the benefit? Benefit should be in more concrete terms. If you can, if possible, you're saving a cost of $1 million per annum due to reduction in wastage. Okay. So output, outcome, benefit. Next, we come to the response. Just 1 minute. Responsibilities. Okay. And then we have. Okay. Do you want to take the break now?
Yeah, we can take like a 10
Sorry.
minutes or a 15 minute. Yeah, I said, yeah, you can take 10 minutes or
Okay. Let's
15
take a
minutes
10
break.
minutes break now.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So continuing where we stopped. Let me just. Next, we are coming to the responsibilities. Basically, the roles and responsibilities, and who does what kind of. Okay. So first level that we have is the CPM, not the Communist Party of India, but corporate or program management. CPM, corporate or program management. This is basically the highest level, highest project decision making body in the organization. They are the ones who provide the project mandate and who will include the information on the business case. The corporate or program management is interested in hearing about the benefits of the project. During the project manager will report on the benefits to the program management and will update the benefits review plan. After the project is completed, the CPM will be responsible for the benefits review plan. So they have the responsibility of following up to ensure that the benefits have been realized. Usually what happens is the CPM is the highest level, right? It could be the CEO, CFO, CIO at that level. They get together and they decide, okay, let's take this initiative. Like you were talking about your, the talking, interaction initiatives. Maybe your the CHRO, the chief HR, proposes this at the C level, and they say, okay, let's take a shot at it and let's see how it goes. Why don't you take the initiative? They will take the CHRO that take the initiative. Let's see what comes out of it. So then what they start doing is the chief of HR will go back. He will in turn identify somebody within within his team and say, hey, this is one initiative that we are taking. And it's a very brief one-liner or two-liners at most. He'll talk about the ideas, what the CEO thinks, what the CFO thinks, or what other CIO thinks. And they think that, okay, this is a great idea. We should get interacting with our employees and involve external speakers who will be able to bring in ideas from outside the organization. And that is a brief one liner. Okay, nothing more than that. Once the project manager gets it, he will start developing that. He will think of the business benefits, what's the cost involved, how many people does he need on board, what kind of interactions will be involved, who are the likely speakers. Okay, and slowly they will start evolving from there, and they will build up a business case and the business plan and so on and so forth. There is the executive. Okay, so executive, also called as the sponsor, is responsible for the business case and the benefits review plan during the project. The executive is responsible to develop a viable business case, securing funding for the project and ensuring the project is aligned with corporate strategy. That is very important. Just because there is a a viable business case doesn't mean that you start jumping with the you start off that project, right? It has to be aligned to your corporate strategy as well. Only then you should be able to execute that, you should take on that project. Next we come to a senior user. Senior user is a person who is like representing the user community. He is responsible for specifying the benefits and ensuring they are realized by the project. They are also responsible for ensuring that the products produced by the project deliver the desired outcomes. In other words, they can be used as expected. Okay, so that is the senior user. Next, you have the project manager. The project manager is assisting the executive. Like in our example, the chief of HR could be the executive who is owning the project. And project manager is assisting the executive in preparing the business case, and each new or revised issue risk, they will do an impact analysis of the business case to see if the issue or risk affects the business case. They also assess the business case at the end of each stage. This information is required by the project board, and they also keep the benefit review plan updated during the project. In all practical purposes, it is the project manager who will be doing all this work in the mostly in the name of the executive. So he will prepare a business case, send it to the executive. Executive will review it. They will share their feedback that will get incorporated into the business case. So based on how things move, they will keep revisiting that business case from time to time, what we talked about earlier. Continued business justification, the business case. Then we have the project assurance. Project assurance is basically a kind of audit service on each project to check that it is progressing as planned. From a business case point of view, they can assist in the development of the business case, and they will monitor the business case for external events. Remember, the project manager operates inside the project, so they only see internal events. Project assurance also verifies and monitors the benefits review plan. Okay, so you could have a business case for a CRM project. You could have, like, for every high rise residential towers, let's say someone wants to have a construction of a 3 high rise residential towers. So what's the business justification? Why have 3? Why not have 1 and have multiple? So there are options, there are alternatives that you can come up with. Or like the business case for a CRM project, right? So for a CRM project, what do you think are the business cases? What is the business justification for the project? How much of cost will it involve? What tools will be involved? What training is required? Now, even before doing the project, you have to understand, is your project ready to handle it? Is your organization ready to handle the CRM tool? Okay,
Yeah.
so those are the things that you would evaluate in developing your business case. So like I was telling you, the C level, the CEO might say, hey, why can't we have a CRM tool in our organization? Let's uh, build a CRM tool, or let's implement a CRM tool, and he may ask the CIO guy to, hey, why don't you investigate what is the best tool in the market? And then he will go in, he will check what are the tools, he will call for a demo, he will evaluate the products, he will come up with a business case, what are tools to use, what are the pros cons of each tool, what is the cost involved, what are the features, how does it gel with your current organization and the business users, how are the users going to adapt it, and so on. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
So this is what we talked about: CPM and the three levels: project management team, directing, managing, delivering. So the project board is responsible for directing. Usually the project board consists of, often also called as the steering committee, it will consist of representations from the respective stakeholders. Okay, there would be somebody from the user side, there would be somebody from the supplier side, from the IT side, from the business side. So they would be representing the respective stakeholders on the project board, and the project manager is reporting to the project board and explaining the pros and cons, the benefits, the all the details about the particular project. And the team manager, he is essentially looking after the deliverables, maybe the individual deliverables that come out of it, and how the deliverables meet the project objectives. So this is a typical, you can say, a simple project structure. Team manager reports to the project manager reports to the executive, and the executive, that is the project board, is consisting of the senior user, senior supplier, executive. Executive could be the sponsor, and the other representatives of the stakeholders.
So the senior supplier can be from the client team, or it can be the internal teams.
It can be from the client, it can be from the IT team also, it can be from the,
Okay.
see, who is the supplier basically, right? Like if you are developing a tool, maybe you go to an external vendor for developing the tool. Like if you look at this current IT portal that has been developed by the government of India, you must have read about it. Have you read about it?
Oh yeah, I haven't, but I've heard about it. Yes.
Yeah, it's very much in the news for all the wrong reasons. So uh, that's typically how our projects are implemented, right? We being in projects, we know this is how it is going to be. And so senior supplier would be somebody from, in this case, would be somebody from the Infosys side, maybe Nandan Nilkani, or Salil Parekh, or somebody from their level who would be representing Infosys on the project board. You would have the income tax officials, the income tax, maybe the chairman, or may not be the chairman, maybe the uh, IT head of income tax department who is represented on the project board. You would have
Got it.
somebody from the government on the project board. Executive could be all things that being done in the name of the finance ministry. So the secretary or the undersecretary of the IT department, finance department, could be the executive. Okay.
Yeah.
A little more complexity can be added when you add assurance box into it. So you have business assurance, you have user assurance, and you have supplier assurance. Okay. This is another team structure where you include a change authority and a project support.
Who can be the project support? Sorry.
Project support could be your project management office, who are responsible for, following up with people on their deliverables, ensuring their time cards, expenses are filed properly, all the documents are filed properly, weekly reports are sent out, or weekly or fortnightly reports are sent out, and things like that.
And change authority?
Change authority is usually the change board on projects. So what happens is, if there is, initially when you start your project, you start with the project scope. Okay. And once your project starts, there might be changes requested by the user. Those changes may affect your project timeline and scope. Now, whether to
Yeah.
do that or not needs to be authorized by the change authority. So there would be representations made to the change authorities, change board, saying, look, this is what we had said initially, but now we think this is what is required, and this is a um, mandatory requirement. We have to do this, otherwise it's going to, we are not going to be able to do this, XYZ, whatever it is. So they might say it's a must do. In that case, change authority will have no option but to approve it. Now they might ask, is there any alternative? What if we don't do it now, we do it next year? So we let the project continue with the current scope. Okay. So these are changes that are approved by the change board. In that case, if there is a cost implication, the supplier will say, look, you are asking for this change, so I have to, rework this, and then I have to get more resources for this one, which means an addition of, let's say, 1 month effort. So I'm going to charge you this much extra. So the objective of change board is to ensure that any changes requested by the users is properly evaluated and documented. It's not that, so you start a project and the user calls you and says, hey, you're a very good person, why don't you help me do this change? Let's
Yeah.
do it
Yeah.
quietly, let's not tell the project team. It's between you and me, I'll treat you. Right now, that's a very
Yeah.
dangerous thing.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
So that is why you have a change authority, the change board. It's in the knowledge of everyone. Everybody knows what's the change involved, and then work on it accordingly. So these are the three main project interests, as you can say. Primary three main categories of stakeholders, and the interest of all three must be satisfied if the project is to be successful. And they are also the representatives, three main representatives on your project board.
Yeah.
So that's what this slide talks about: three project interests: business, user interest, and supplier interest. Stakeholder engagement is the process of identifying and communicating effectively with those people or groups who have an interest in the project's outcome. It's also managing relationships as a way of achieving influence and positive outcomes. Do you understand who is a stakeholder?
Yes. Yeah.
Who, according to you, is a stakeholder?
So, okay, so let me give you as an example, and that way I would be able to tell it. So, what I was mentioning, let's again giving the example of the new, let's say, new application project. So, here in this case, if I am working on a project which is we are creating a new application or integrating a new tool, then the stakeholders can be the users. So basically, who would be using it? So stakeholders can also be like the the customers or yes. So basically, what I understand, like they can be the users or they can be the customers. Here in this case, they can be the internal users, and hence we can call them as internal stakeholders. But if we are, for example, if we are acting as a third party and other companies are using this same application, they can be the external stakeholders. So that's what my understanding about stakeholder.
Okay, you're you're right. Uh, these are the stakeholders. A one-liner would be anybody connected with your project.
All right. Okay.
Just a one-liner. Anybody connected with your project. So they can be your customers, they can be your employees, they can be your users, they can be the project staff, they can be people who are supporting you.
So people who are supporting me, they can also be a stakeholder.
Yes, for example, your HR can be a stakeholder for your project. If they don't find you the right people, if they don't get the right people released from other projects or other assignments, other departments, your project may not be successful.
But
You are in
shouldn't,
desperate need of particular skill set in a project.
but can't they be the suppliers?
So who is interacting with the supplier? Let's say the HR vendor. Who interacts? Usually it is the recruitment team who interacts.
Yes. Yes.
So they become a stakeholder to your project.
Okay.
So like I said, anybody connected with your project directly
Okay.
or indirectly. If you look
But,
at in a few months back in Tamil Nadu, there was a
mhm.
case of a Vedant factory where there was a leakage.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, they are not able to start that plant after that leakage because of different factors. One of them is the locals. They're
Yes.
up in arms against that particular factory. But during the oxygen crisis, they were allowed to operate that plant for producing oxygen.
Yes.
So again, the stakeholders, if they are involved in the right manner, they might agree to certain things. They may not agree to certain things in your project.
Please help me understand the concept of suppliers thing, because as you mentioned, as you given the example for HR, I was thinking that since HR is, let's say, they are freeing up other employees from other team for this particular project, so I was thinking that they can be acting as a supplier. But if you can give me one example of suppliers, then it would be good.
Yes. So see, often what happens, HR as a team, we talk about HR, but there might be individual teams within HR, like recruitment, project resourcing, right? So they are responsible. They have the knowledge who are the key people in the project, right? You might have seen in certain projects, they have all the skilled resources. All the top resources are in one particular project,
Yes.
whereas all the leftovers are in another project.
Yes.
And then you start seeing issues coming out of that project.
Yeah. Mhm.
It's bound to happen because you don't have the people with the right skills there. The staffing team probably, due to various reasons, conflicts, or not getting along with the project manager, or not being happy with the existing project team, they said, okay, we'll teach you a lesson. We are going to staff you in this way. Now if that project team accepts this, so be it. If they don't accept it, they create a huge hullabulla, then you will find, changes happening in the team.
Yes.
So these are subtle things which often happen, but what needs to be done is you need to have those stakeholder mapping done in at least in your mind, if not on paper. We do this all the time, right? Like suppose somebody was supposed to be a project manager for a very lucrative or attractive project, maybe a project in US, but somehow he missed the bus. Somebody else got it. Now, what's going to happen is this guy, he will try and he may, I'm not saying he may try and put brakes on that project. So these are subtle things that happen because all human emotions are involved of it.
Then who would be the suppliers here?
So suppliers, like in case, like nowadays you must have seen, most companies don't call suppliers suppliers. They call them partners.
Yes.
Why?
Correct.
They feel that if you engage with the suppliers early on, you involve them as partners, you get a better response from them. You're able to fulfill your objectives. So how it happens is, if your supplier is given an upfront into the project, you tell them, look, you, this is what you can expect. You get a heads up on the project. You tell them, see, over a period of time I'm going to involve 200 of your people, but you need to give me the right resources, and I will be involving them, in such a manner. So you give them visibility on the project, you give them visibility on the timelines, give them visibility on the numbers. You will see a better reception from your suppliers or your partners.
So can so in the given example, can HR not be the supplier then? Because since I'm taking HR team's help, like let's say talent acquisition or recruitment, whoever it is, asking them like, hey, can you just get me, help me identifying these resources with these specific skill sets. So can they not be the supplier for, in the given project, given example project?
Yes, they will be. Okay. So what happens is, it depends on your project organization. How is
Okay.
your project organization oriented? Can the project directly approach the supplier? Probably no. Often what project team does is, they will say, I'm informally telling you
Hmm.
this is a requirement that we have on our project. So the supplier guy, he may start, you know putting in an email or putting in, look, I have this resource, and if you want this, we can do this. And he will start putting subtle hints to the responsible teams. Officially it is HR and the talent acquisition team which has to sign off in the need for resources from the supplier.
Okay.
So you are
Okay.
going through them officially,
Hmm.
right? But if you keep the stakeholder thing in mind, you just ensure that things are done properly. Or, sometimes you are a bit more smarter, and you involve them early on, and you give them subtle hints, and you ensure that you get the right resource.
So, okay, yeah. So I think I'm getting a little confused here. Like, for example, um, let's say again, I'm giving one example. Let's say I'm creating an application and building a project around it, and I'm involving HR and dev team to identify the right resources for this application. So, what I can understand, from my understanding, what I can think that HR, let's say HR or dev team, they are the suppliers because they are helping us in understanding or identifying the right resources with the right skill set. Whereas the users, like for example, the application, let's say we are creating this application for the sales team, whereas the sales team can be the stakeholders or the end users. So yeah, so that's why I'm just asking you about the HR again and again. Like, if they are helping us in identifying the right resources, or the dev team is helping us in identifying the right resources, then and we are creating an application for the sales team, how they can be a stakeholder.
Okay. The successful implementation of your project is dependent on
Yes,
getting the right resources at the right time.
yes, yes, absolutely.
And who is going to help you in that?
So HR or the dev team.
Yes. So
Yeah.
that's why they become your stakeholders.
Okay.
So anybody who is directly, indirectly involved with your project and who is in who has a direct interest in making your project successful.
Okay, I got it. So here in this case, stakeholder is not the end user or the user, but anybody who is making the project a success. So they can be
Yes,
considered as a
correct,
stakeholder.
correct.
Got it, got it, got it. I was thinking from the end user perspective, like who would be using the application or who would be directly benefited from the project. So okay, I
They
got it.
would also be your stakeholders, definitely. Stakeholders is quite a sometimes it's quite a long list, you know. So
Yeah,
if I start from the top, your CPM is a stakeholder,
yeah,
executive is a stakeholder, project manager is a stakeholder, the project team members are your stakeholder, the business users are your stakeholder, the end users are your stakeholder, the suppliers are your stakeholder, vendors are your stakeholder. So you see, there's a whole lot of people that you can come up with. And since this is a project in general, it can be applied to any type of project: construction project, road project, building project, like that road widening project. You must have heard stories across the country where a lot of projects are stuck because of encroachments.
yes, yes,
So getting them involved and managing the stakeholder is very important for the success of that project. So each project has its own level, all own list of stakeholders, which has to be evaluated during the implementation of the project. Okay. Now there would be a communication management strategy as well. So the project manager is responsible for creating the communication management strategy during the initiation phase of the project. This should be reviewed during the managing a stage boundary process to ensure stakeholders are receiving the required communication. Communication is very, very important, which is something that we hardly do. We, in the country, we as Indians, we think, oh, what communication, man? I'll tell you when the time comes. You just do your stuff. But you must have seen abroad, they make a great they find great ways of communicating, and they always communicate. They keep communicating, let me say, or probably sometimes they over communicate, right?
yes, yes.
So
Yeah.
that is something that all these project management methodologies keep talking about: the communication strategy. So the golden rule is communicate, communicate, communicate.
Yes, yes, definitely.
So the communication strategy should contain following things: introduction to remind the reader on the purpose of the document, communication procedure. What will be the communication procedure? Email, meetings, presentations, tools and techniques such as email, intranet, newsletter, reporting, types of reports, and the information they should contain, timing states when communication activities will be done, roles and responsibilities, who will handle the communication, stakeholder analysis, type of stakeholder and the relationship desired with the stakeholder, Information needed. Information required from project, including the frequency of the communication and the format of it. So these are the roles and responsibilities for the organization from the organization perspective. CPM is the body responsible for appointing the executive, and executive in turn will appoint the project manager. They can also provide some information for the project as will be defined in the communication management strategy document. Executive will appoint the project manager if not done by the CPM. Executive will confirm appointments to the project management team. Again, this one is usually the project manager will identify the project management team and go to the stakeholder executive and get that approved. Approving the communication management strategy document. The senior supplier is responsible for providing the supplier resources. The supplier may be internal or an external entity. Senior user is responsible for providing the user resources, defining and verifying user requirements and expectations. Project manager is responsible for preparing the communication management strategy, reviewing and updating the project management structure, preparing the role descriptions. Team manager is responsible for managing the project team members. They can advise on the selection of project team members. Project assurance, advising on the selection of project management team members, advising on stakeholder management, ensuring the communication management strategy is appropriate and the planned communication activities actually take place. Next, we come to the quality theme. The purpose of the quality theme is to define and implement a system that will create and verify the products that are fit for use. So as you're producing products in your project, you need to verify that. Okay. The
Yes.
right term is whether they are fit for use. Fit for use meaning you are checking whether they are as was expected, as was defined in your project deliverables. Ensure products created during the project meet the expectations and the end product can be used as intended. If the quality of products is not as expected, then the expected benefits should be realized as a result of the project will not be achieved. So the products must work as expected for the project to deliver the expected benefits. So if the quality of the products is not expected, then the benefit of the project will not be achieved. The product focus is one of the principles of PRINCE2, which means that a project's products should be clearly defined at the start of the project. This includes the quality criteria information so that all project stakeholders have a common understanding of the products that will be created. Okay. You're okay.
Yeah.
So in PRINCE2, the quality focuses on ensuring products are fit for purpose. Nowadays, you might have seen the quality focus has moved from quality checking, quality control to quality planning. So what they are saying is when you come to quality control or quality checks, you are too late in the process. All the products have been created, resources have been used up, time has been used up, cost has been used up, and then you are doing a quality check. Why not do a quality planning upfront? So
Yeah.
they are now talking about all these, in the recent years, the focus has been on quality planning, quality control, quality assurance. So quality planning is the need for control and covers definition of the products within the project, along with their quality criteria, quality methods, and quality responsibilities. Okay. So how does quality planning happen? So initially you get the customer's quality expectations. What is the acceptance criteria? What are the project product descriptions? Based on that, the project will create a quality management strategy, and the product descriptions will include the quality expectations of the customer. Okay, and the quality descriptions will have the quality criteria and the tolerances, what quality methods will be used for evaluating, what are the quality responsibilities, and they ultimately will flow into a quality register where you will have a listing of all your products, what quality checks have been done, what discrepancies have been found, and what is the variations, if any, that have been found, and whether the quality passes those products or not. So the quality register is like your mother document for all quality related information. Okay. Quality control is reactive. Okay. And it focuses more on inspection. So this is where the application of lessons learned can be helpful. So what you're doing, when you do the quality checks, you try to do it in a proactive manner so that the number of inspections or number of failures are less. Because more quality failures that you're going to have, higher is going to be your cost. Think of a product company. If the products fail quality check, it's all wasted.
Yes.
Right? Similarly, in IT projects, if after your product is developed and you find bugs or you find mismatches or the product doesn't work as expected, it's a waste. You have expended all the material, all the resource time, resource cost, all that has gone in, goes down the drain. Time is gone. So rather do this more upfront, do more of planning, so that will help. Proactive quality. So quality method, usually there are two types of quality methods. One is called in-process method, allows you to detect flaws earlier as the products are tested while they are being developed, like unit testing in software, integration testing, checklist, inspections. So before you go to the user for user acceptance testing, you should have already done a round of unit testing, multiple rounds of integration testing, checklist and inspections, and so on. In a laptop project, when you are assembling a new variant of a laptop or a new model of a laptop, you would ensure that all the different products, they work together. The keyboard, the monitor, the display screen, or the USB port, the power cable, right? The HDMI port, they all work together. So that has to be checked. Individually, you're checking each of them. And then when you're assembling it, after that, you are also checking them. There is also an appraisal method. Appraisal method means that involves testing the finished product and will depend on the type of product that you're creating. For example, in the laptop project, tests can be done on the finished product, right? Which could
Yeah.
include a full software diagnostic, shaking the device, and so on. In an elevator project, after they install a project, after they install a elevator, they would do a in-process test before they allow passengers into the lift, into the elevator. They will have people, their own people, testing that, just like the metro rail or the the metro uh, that is being done across the country. Before it goes into use by the general public, they are tested by the metro rail authorities. Even something as simple as you call an electrician to replace a faulty switch. You buy a switch from the market, you give it to him. First thing he's going to check is, he will just, before even installing it, he will switch it on and off. Although it will not happen, but he will press it to check whether the switch is working fine or not,
Just to make sure.
just to make sure that it moves from one end to the other end. Still, till he installs it, the light or the fan will not go on and off. But at least he is going to do a check to see whether it's working fine or not. Tick tock, he will check that, right? So that's an type of testing that he is doing. Then you need to maintain the quality records. So quality records provide evidence that each product has met its requirements as specified in its product description. These records support the entries made in the quality register. For example, what was tested, who approved it, what kind of tests were made, what were the findings, what were the records, what after testing, what were the results, pass or fail. All those things will be recorded in your quality register records, which is a part of your quality register. It might be a very simple document as an Excel. That's fine. Even in that document, you have all those things recorded. So it's basically a diary of the quality events that take place during the project, such as workshops, reviews, testing, and acceptance. At first, the quality register will be empty, and the project manager can start to add the data towards the end of quality planning. Most project managers use a spreadsheet for a quality register. So this could be a simple quality register. Is the graphic visible? Quality activity ID is the first column. Next you have the product ID, product, quality method, producer, reviewer, approver, target review date, actual review date, target approval date, actual approval date, and the result. There might be, you might add more columns to it, that uh, defects found, defects rectification date, rectified by, our again retesting, right? So one after another, you can add more columns as per your need to this, and come up with a quality register. Okay. Quality assurance must be independent of the project management team. This is often important, because if you are in a, if quality assurance is part of the project management team, then what happens is, there might be chances that the quality issues are overlooked due to
Yes.
pressures
So
of
in
the
order,
project,
yeah,
right? And so that is why, to ensure neutral, independent quality assurance, the quality team should, assurance team should report to CPM or the project board, independent of your project management team. So
yes,
quality assurance, therefore, is all about independently checking the organization processes and are in place for quality planning and control. Although the objectives of quality assurance is noble, they can often be a pain. And that is why, people often overlook, or try to, you know, uh,
yeah,
overlook the issues relating to quality assurance. And but ultimately, they may suffer in the long run.
Yes, yes.
So PRINCE2 quality review technique is used to assess a product against set quality criteria and works well for a document walkthrough or analysis of test results. The quality review technique confirms that the product is complete, ready for approval, and that it can be baselined and placed under change control. The quality review technique consists of the following three steps: prepare for quality review, conduct the quality review, and perform quality review follow up. Have you ever participated in any quality reviews?
Quality reviews, no, not as an independent, like you said, as an independent
Okay.
team,
Okay.
but I have done
As
quality
part of a
reviews.
project. Okay. Usually,
Yeah,
some companies or some in particular, depending, again, it depends on the size of the project. It can be a, a gala affair, let me say.
yeah,
If it is a big project, then people from different places, they fly into a common place, of course, not in the COVID situation, before COVID situation. So they fly into a common place and then they start reviewing. So you'd have a quality appraiser who will explain how the quality review is to take place. There would be representatives from the user, from the supplier, from the business. So basically everybody, a lot of representatives from the stakeholders come in, whom you see for the first time, and then you start, talking about the product, the issues, or then they will also start talking about their pain areas. But that is where, the quality reviewer has a very important role to set the expectations. It's not
yes, yes.
about you know requirements gathering. It's right, rather requirements gathering is over. Now it's about the product has been created. Now it is about quality checking, right? So how the conduct is to happen, how, if there are any defects, how is that to be taken care of, so how is that to be documented, and they will ensure that those quality issues or quality defects or the defects that have been identified, those are addressed properly. So these are some of the steps that are often taken for the quality review. Like I said, it is a very challenging thing because very often, users, this is the first opportunity that they have talking with the project team. Okay. So they then start, venting themselves. So making administrative arrangements. So what are the quality review checkpoints? Making administrative arrangements for the review. The chair or the administrator is responsible for it, usually the quality reviewer, head of quality, or one of the chief quality auditors, depending on the scale of the project. Check that the product is ready for review and confirm reviewer availability. Distribute product copies to reviewers along with the product descriptions. Review the product relative to its quality criteria. Submit question list to chair and presenter prior to review. Annotate product copy for copy edit errors and return to presenter. Produce consolidated question list for the review meeting and send to the presenter. So there would be different people who would be doing all these activities. So the chair is responsible for introducing the attendees and the product being reviewed, invite the reviews to contribute major questions, agree actions on each question as it is raised, okay, the defects or questions, record the actions and responsibilities. The lead review team through the product and review the consolidated question list, agree questions on each agree actions on each question as it is raised, and record the actions and responsibilities. So that is part of your quality review.
I have a question. So
Yeah.
quality review can quality review be one team or it can comprise of multiple teams?
Again, it depends on the scale and size of the project. If the project
Okay.
is very small, maybe you have 10, 12 people, then it may not be a gala affair. It could be a, very small thing, or you don't even, in some cases you don't even announce it as a quality review. You do some testing, you do the unit testing, do the
Yeah.
integration testing, and take it over to user testing. But if you have, like, like I was telling you, let's say a CRM project which affects particularly everybody in the organization, or an ERP project. You have finance people, you have HR people, you have procurement, supply chain people, everybody coming from different departments. Then it's a huge affair.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
So it all depends
Okay.
on the size and scope of your project.
So, what I understood, like for example, like a normal project which involves a new product, then there we can call the testers as the quality review, right?
Yes, yes. Basically, they use the term quality broadly, so that, whether it is a product project or a IT
Yeah.
project or a service project, you can accommodate all types of testers there.
Okay. Got
So towards the end of the quality review, when the quality is being closed, so you would ensure that all the action, all the activities, all the defects, all the follow-up actions that have been identified are listed out and assigned to individuals in the who are present there, so that they say yes, no, agreed, not agreed. Whatever decisions need to be taken will be taken then and there. Sometimes you might need to go back to the change board again for a review of those action items, because something that might have come out of it, so, it might be very critical, mission critical sometimes, which was, I could have been a miss earlier, nobody thought about it, but it came up during the testing. In those cases, you would have to ensure that the people are accommodated, the requirements are accommodated, else your project may not be a success ultimately. So perform quality review follow-up. So you need to coordinate and track the actions, sign off on actions as they are completed. Actions could be defects or a follow-up change or some actions that were required to be taken. Sign off on product completion after all actions are complete, and communicate quality review outcome and store the quality records, and request formal approval for the product. So whatever product you have come up with, you agree that yes, this product as development or creation is complete, and you are able to move ahead. So what are the roles and responsibilities from a quality perspective? CPM's roles and responsibility are provide details of the quality management system. That is, what are the quality expectations, what levels are supposed to be there, and so on and so forth. Provide quality assurance to the product, to the project. That is the CPM's responsibility. Senior user will provide the company's quality expectations and acceptance criteria for the product. This makes sense as the senior user is also responsible for the product specifications. Approve the project product description and quality management strategy. This could also be done by the executive. They can also approve the product descriptions for key products and provide acceptance of the project product. So when you are developing the product right in the beginning, when you do the product description, that is when you should have the quality criteria also identified and documented. Because based on that, you are going to create your product. If you don't publish it then and there, and 4 months down the line or 6 months down the line, you share that, then it's going to be a problem. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Next, executive can also approve the project product description and quality management strategy with the senior user. Senior supplier will provide the resources to undertake quality activities. Project manager will document the customer's quality expectations and acceptance criteria. They will work with the senior user on this. Prepare the project description with other persons involved in the project. Prepare the quality management strategy document, which defines how quality will be done in the project. Ensure that the team managers implement the quality control measures agreed in the project, in the product descriptions and work packages. Team manager will produce the products consistent with product descriptions. It will advise the project manager of the product quality status. Project assurance will advise the project manager on the quality management strategy and on suitable reviewers and approvers. Assure the project board members on the implementation of the quality management system. Provide administrator support for quality control. Maintain quality register and the quality records. Earlier you were talking about project support. So in most projects, or at least depending on the budget, again you may have a separate project support staff, often called as the PMO, the project management office, who have you know like additional support staff sending out minutes of the meeting or sending out meeting invites, recording the quality checks, quality register, maintaining it, updating it, and sending out the quality reports from time to time.
Yeah.
Next, we come to the plan theme. The purpose of the plan theme is to provide the following information to all the project team members and thereby facilitate effective control. What is required, how it will be achieved and by whom, and details on any specific resource such as specialized hardware or equipment required. Details on activities and milestones, targets for time, cost, quality, scope, risk and benefits. Provide a baseline against which progress can be measured. That is the purpose of the plan, basically your project plan. So there would be three levels of plan. It is recommended. Often there would be a master plan which will have all these three pieces individually inside it. The lowest level is your team plan, where the actual delivery is happening. Then you have the stage plan. Then you have the project plan. In IT, usually it's common to have one plan which will have the stage plans and the team plans inbuilt into it. But if you look at a physical project, something like a refinery being set up,
Yeah.
right? You could have separate plans, a township plan, a road and infrastructure plan, a water treatment plant plan, the main refinery plant plan. So these are all individual plans. So there could be different team plans, different stage plans, and a different project plan. So as we have talked about management by exception, so each plan, whenever it is exceeding the allowed tolerance, then an exception report must be created, and the purpose is to effectively utilize the management time. If required, an exception plan will now be prepared for the appropriate management level to show the actions required to recover from the effects of a tolerance deviation. If an exception plan is approved, it will replace the original, hence become the new baseline plan.
Okay.
Clear?
Yes.
So an exception plan is basically nothing but anything that is supposed to exceed the tolerances set for each level. And you would approach the next higher level for approval. So if you
Okay.
can start from the bottom, team level, then you go to the stage level plan, then the stage level plan, if that is exceeded, then you go to the project level, which is your project board. And then if the project levels are exceeded, then you go to the CPM.
Yeah.
The benefits review plan defines schedule for measurement of the benefits generated from the project's outcome. How and when measurement of the achievement of the project benefits. The benefits review plan is created within the initiating a project process and is a part of PID, and it is updated at each stage boundary. The benefits review plan is used during the closing a project process where it updated to reflect any benefits that have already been realized, and most importantly, those benefits along with the resources that have yet to be realized after the project has been completed. This benefit review plan can often have a timeline in terms of when the benefits will be fully realized. Like if you look at a metro project, initially they start with a small area, right? Maybe 1 kilometer, 2 kilometer, 5 kilometers. They start with that. Then they gradually extend it over a period of time. That means what? Your entire benefit may not come right away.
Yeah.
Similarly, in IT projects or in services project, we do a pilot first. If the pilot is
Yes.
successful, we start extending it to other branches, other parts of the organization. So gradually the benefits will roll out and they will cover the entire organization and the benefit will be fully realized. So
So in a
yeah, go ahead.
sorry. Yeah.
Go ahead.
So in a big project like what you have mentioned, like the metro project, it's a huge project.
Yes.
So benefit reviews planned. So I think it would be in every phases, right? It's not
Yes.
gonna be so
Yes.
for a project like an IT, like a small IT project, it can be maybe in the initial phase of the project and just to review the benefit plan. But for a
Yes.
big projects like metro or something like that, then I think it will be in all the stages. I mean, just to understand, I'm asking this.
No, you're absolutely right. The benefits
Yeah.
may, like we were talking about the stages, right? Your
Yes.
benefits
Yes.
may also come in stages. So
Yes.
the stage definition could be part of your rollout plan as well,
Yes.
right? Now, even in IT, there are projects,
Hmm.
particularly the ERP projects, which are huge
Yeah.
projects. Okay. In the past, I had been part of one project for Cisco. You must have heard of Cisco. Cisco, this
Yes.
particular, as Cisco operates in over 116 countries. And we were doing an HR implementation, HR application implementation for Cisco. It was affecting, at that point of time, they had 86,000 employees.
Okay.
So it was affecting each and every employee across the organization.
Hmm.
Then there were users from literally every country. There would be an HR person, right? At least in
Yeah.
every country, at least one HR person. So
Yes.
they had to be trained, they had to be told what to do, they had to be informed about the steps. And when we did that quality review, the testing, that is what I was explaining to you, that people literally from all over the globe flew in. Somebody from Japan, somebody from Singapore, somebody from India and Middle East was obviously there. Somebody from Europe, somebody from 3, 4 teams from US, somebody from South America. So every sort of groups were represented in the organization in that particular quality team. So there were around close to around 80 people representing the users in that particular testing cycle. So you can imagine the impact. So the benefit
Yes.
review, they before the implementation of that project, they had around 35 different applications. So
Okay.
after the implementation, they had brought it down to around 20. They still needed other applications which were integrated with this main HR application. So
So
over,
initially they had 34 applications and then they brought it down to 20.
yeah.
Okay.
So when I talk about applications, what I mean is like they had a separate time recording system. They had a different
Okay.
payroll system. They had a different talent management system, recruitment, hiring, and all that. Competencies. They had yet another system for competencies.
Okay.
So where all the evaluation, all the the employee reviews were done. So now they moved all that into one system, one single system. But there were other applications like hire right. You Have you heard of hire right?
No, I have.
Basically they
No.
are a background checking organization. Nowadays in India also they have started a background check. So the background check of the organization explains what so what they do is moment someone joins the organization, they would send a background check request to hire right. So that is a hire right. Now what they were doing is they would send the request from the HR application, but it would still go to the hire right app. They need to go to the hire right application and see the feedback and then bring that back in and stuff like that. So that's why they couldn't do away with all the applications altogether, but over a period of time their plan was to complete that integration.
Okay.
So this is typically a plan that we have. Design the plan, define and analyze the products, identify the activities and dependencies, prepare the estimates, prepare the schedule, document the plan.
So, okay, so define and analyze the product. So the once we are in the define and analyze the product phase, we'll come to the product-based planning technique,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And
That,
simultaneously and once this is, so are we going to, so just a question.
yeah.
So in an ideal scenario, should we go to identifying activities and dependencies after the product-based planning technique, or we should do that simultaneously?
Often we do it simultaneously to save time, but the final
Okay.
thing will be dependent on the product planning technique also. What your product descriptions come up with, because based on that, your activities might be impacted.
Okay. Okay. Got it.
This is just more text around those diagrams. So the product project description is the senior user is responsible for specifying the project product. It will often be created by the project manager in close communication with both the senior user and the executive of the project board. The project product description describes the purpose of the project product and who will use it. It also contains the specialist skills required along with the customer quality expectations and the acceptance criteria, tolerances, acceptance method, and exception responsibilities. So this could be a product breakdown structure. In case of a hard and physical product, you would break it down in this fashion. And each of them would have a description, quality expectations, quality requirements.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Have you ever been to a IKEA shop? Store?
Yes, I have. Yes, I have
Uh,
been.
have you seen that they have a machine for testing a chair?
Yes, yes, I have seen that. So I went to the Hyderabad one.
Yes,
Uh,
yes. So
yeah.
you would have probably seen, that machine comes, presses the chair and goes back, again comes,
Yeah.
presses the chair. So that's how they're checking the, how durable that chair is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's like one of the product descriptions you can include, that particular, you might see in, product catalogs, that this particular product is good for so many,
Yeah.
XYZ parameters, so many sits,
Yes.
or that cloth is good for 10,000 hours XYZ and things like that. So though they have those testing tools or testing criteria for checking them, and so for each of these you could have the product descriptions in that manner along with the quality expectations.
Yes. Got it.
So each product description should include these items. More clarity you provide upfront, easier it will be down the line. But often we try to keep all this hazy with the hope that we'll be able to manage without getting into too much of details. But then it could have a negative impact down the line.
So, what are tolerances in
Tolerances is
this?
variations that you are willing to accept. So
So,
you, let's say
so
in your
is it
quality you had specified, I want a speed, or I want so many transactions per second. Let's say you have said, I'll accept 1000 transactions per minute, let's say. Now you find instead of 1000 you're getting 990 transactions per minute.
okay?
So that's like 10, which is like 1% variation. Is that acceptable
Yes.
or not?
Okay.
So
Okay.
those are the
So,
tolerances.
okay. And what is so what is producer? I understood approval and review
So
producer.
these are the identified people. So who is
Okay.
creating it, who is approving it, who is reviewing it.
Okay. Okay. Got it.
So always
So,
you may not have a specific person in mind. You might put a name of a team also.
okay. Understood.
So this could be from a integration or a product flow diagram, even for a service, or you know these could be individual aspects. So objective is to ultimately break it down to the lowest level of this simple product, where you are actually creating a deliverable, and that will roll up into your main product.
Okay.
So when you define these activities, you require to create the products of the project. You also have the dependencies. Okay. The dependencies can be internal and external dependencies. And the relationship that you have between the dependencies, usually these are the four standard types of dependencies that you have. When you have you worked with MS Project Plan?
Uh, yes, not that much, but
Okay.
yes, I have.
Okay. So when
Lots
you
of project.
create these tasks in project plan, you can
Yeah.
have the predecessors and the successors, and you can say which task comes first, which task comes next. So finish start means the task A comes first, task B comes next. Start to start means both the tasks, they start at the same time. Finish means both the task, the task meaning the predecessor and the successor, they both finish at the same time. And start finish means the first one starts, the second one finishes.
Okay. Got it.
And you, based on your plans, you do an estimate from your planning, right? You could have a top down estimation. Okay, you could say, okay, I have 6 months time to implement this project. Let me see how my 6 months is going to be used up. So much in project requirements, so much in design, so much in implementation, so much in rollout. Or you could have a bottom up approach. So you say, okay, I need 1 month for requirement, 2 months for solution design, 1 month for testing, another 2 months for rollout. So total comes to, let's say, 7 months. And there are other ways also: 3 point estimation, single point estimate, Delphi techniques. So these are all, statistical and, different ways of trying to get at a more exact estimate. Because when we say an activity is going to take a 5 days, that is more a guess figure based on our experience, prior experience, right? Now assuming that the activity is going to go smooth, now we don't know whether it's going to be exact 5 days, 4.5 days, or 3 days, or 6 days. Sometimes
Yes.
you are leading a project team, you call your project team members and say, look, we have this task, how much time do you think you will take? If he tells you 3 days, you will add 1 day to it and you will report 4 days to the project manager.
Yes. Yes.
Project manager will probably up that figure from 4 to 5 and then report 5 days.
Yes.
So these are different ways of estimating. So most of it is guesstimate, right? So you're guessing the estimate in spite of
Yeah.
all the statistical information, calculations, all that you may do. The objective is ultimately to provide the project on time and on schedule. So this is the schedule is tracked through a Gantt chart. As you have worked with project plan, you know the Gantt chart gets produced on the right hand side of the project plan. It has those
Yes.
bars. So it, from there you can also get the critical path, which is the critical activities and the non-critical activities. So you know that the critical activity you need to finish, otherwise it's going to impact your project timeline. Float or slack. Float is basically the um, buffer time between two activities, or any slippage between two activities. You could have negative or you could have positive. So that's the slack or the float. And based on that, sometimes, if there are positive floats, there is a gap. Even a 1 day slippage on one task may be accommodated in the overall timeline. But if it is zero float or zero buffer, then you cannot afford 1 day slippage.
Yeah. Got it.
And in the plan, we also assess and assign the resources. The first step is to identify who is available in terms of knowledge, skills, and experience to carry out the work. This will also include the identification of available non-human resources such as facilities. The next steps is to assign such resources to each appropriate activity, taking into consideration work effort estimates and that their availability. As a consequence of this, the critical path may be modified. Resource leveling. These are two situations which may now be present. The first is that large resource peaks will be evident at certain points within the project, and this can result in management or logistical problems. The second may result in overutilization of some resources. The action resolving either of the above is called leveling. What does it mean? Often what happens, you have a key resource in your project, and this guy, he's a good guy, but you keep assigning him to all different activities at the same time. So what's going to happen? He's going to be overstressed. He's supposed to work 40 hours, but you end up assigning maybe 60 hours, 80 hours of work to him. So that additional work that you're giving is called as over allocation. Through leveling, you reduce that over allocation for that person and you give him a more balanced work. If required, or if there are no available resources, you might have to rework the dates to ensure that he is not fully stressed. Okay. So control points, these are key control points of project milestones, often called as milestones. These will include project level, project plan level, end stage points, stage plan levels, such as product completion, quality checking, authorization, completion of testing. These are, typical control points that you have on your project.
Okay.
So when you define the control point or the milestones, milestone is generally a zero duration activity, okay, and which shows the key control points. Total resource requirements. So when you are talking about a budget, you have to consider the total resource requirements and costs which are calculated to produce the demand plan as as budget. So based on the budget, rest of your cost things are arrived at. You will also have a cost tolerance. Remember, any variation from your cost budget, you might need to go to the higher level for an approval.
Yeah.
Management by exception. So then this schedule is presented in the form of a Gantt chart using products like MS Project Plan or Primavera P6. These are usually used to derive the Gantt charts, and you identify the milestones, and then you can analyze who are the resources assigned, what tasks are assigned, and so on and so forth. So you analyze the risks. The activity will run in parallel with the other steps, as risks may be identified at any point during the creation or update of a given plan. The main purpose is to have identified risk responses and associated resources built into the plan so that the risks can be managed. By the very act of planning, new risks may consist of those related to the plan itself or the information contained within it. So for as part of your regular planning objective, planning exercise, you must do a risk analysis as well. Risk means anything that can affect your project.
Got it.
So the final step is the creation of the complete plan document, and aspects that need to be included here will include the schedule, costs, required controls, and supporting text which will be added to explain the plan, any constraints on it, external dependencies and assumptions, monitoring and controlling activities, along with risk responses. So then we come to the roles and responsibilities. The CPM will set the project level tolerances, as we have been talking about, and are
Yeah.
responsible for approving any exception plans. So if there are deviations, how will those
Yeah.
deviations be breached? They will come up with an exception plan. Who will come up? The project team. The executive will approve the project plan and define tolerances for each stage and approve the stage plan. Approve the exception plan when stage level tolerances are forecast to be exceeded. Commit business resources to the stage plan. Senior user ensures that project plan and stage plan remains consistent from the user perspective and commit user resources to stage plans. Senior supplier will ensure the project plan and stage plans remain consistent from the supplier perspective and commit supplier resources to the stage plan. Project manager will prepare the project plan and stage plan and decide how the management and technical stages are to be applied. Define the work package level tolerances and instruct corrective action when the work package level tolerances are forecast to exceed. Work package is the deliverable that we are talking about here. Team manager prepares the team plans and prepares schedules for each work package. Project assurance monitors changes to the project plan to see whether there is any impact on the project business case. Project support assists with the compilation and the distribution of plans. Okay, so here we start with risk. So we'll stop here today. Okay, I
Yeah.
think it will also give you some breathing time. So if you
Yes.
think fit, you can just go through this again, and
Yeah.
in case you find time. And what you could also
Yes.
do is, if you go back to this, you will find there are some mock tests. Okay,
Okay.
so maybe after tomorrow also you can try that, because by then we would have covered the entire syllabus. So that will give you a broad understanding of what to expect and what kind of questions are asked and things like that. Okay, so it starts with 60 questions and it's timed, so within 1 hour you will be able to, you can see whether you are able to finish it or not.
I have a few questions regarding the learning portal. So if it is okay, can I